Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've got a really fascinating stack of research in front of us today, and we're not just skimming the surface.
No, not at all. This one goes deep.
We're launching straight into a future that, it fundamentally redefines humanity's relationship with space and really with time itself.
It absolutely does.
So today our mission is to analyze a technological roadmap that is so ambitious, it's almost, it sounds like science fiction. We're talking about reaching Mars in just one single day.
One day. It's an incredible thought.
And this is all slated for realization by the year 2070. This isn't just a fantasy. It's a detailed engineering challenge, and we are going to unpack every critical piece of it from the sources you've brought.
And the first thing that really stands out, what makes this so unique, is who championed the research. The source material points directly to the vision of one Srinidhi Ranganathan.
Right, and they give him a very specific title.
They do. He's explicitly identified as the digital marketing legend. And I think we need to just pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
A digital marketing expert laying the theoretical groundwork for interplanetary travel. It's this amazing juxtaposition that shows how innovation can come from the most unexpected places.
It's a testament to a different way of thinking. Someone used to scaling ideas digitally, now applying that to, physics.
Exactly. It's that demand for speed and efficiency just on a cosmic scale. Ranganathan's vision, it seems, is what really forced this whole conversation into hyperdrive.
And to ground us, the sources give us a narrator, a point of view from inside this future.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing this through the eyes of Mohan Leelashankar. The man is an AI veteran, an astronaut, and a rocket scientist. We're with him in 2070, sitting in this bustling Indian space lab, just minutes before the mission begins.
So our mission for this deep dive is clear. We're going beyond the headline of Mars in a day. We need to unpack the actual tech, the how.
The nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts. We have to look at things like antimatter containment, fusion miniaturization. Then there's the human cost. What does accelerating a crew to that speed actually do to a person?
The physical and psychological strain must be immense.
Immense. And finally, we'll get into the global implications of making space travel this fast. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with just how big of a leap this is from where we are now.
All right, so Mohan Leelashankar, our narrator, is in the control room, and he gives us this perfect starting point. He's looking back.
He's reflecting on the whole journey.
Exactly. He talks about witnessing the evolution from those, early, almost crude rockets that were just about brute chemical force to the spacecraft they have in 2070. You can feel the weight of that history in his words.
And that's such a crucial point because it establishes the scale of what's happening. The source material isn't just saying travel's a bit faster. It's declaring an entire era over.
The era of long, slow journeys.
Yes. The days of spending months, maybe even close to a year, on a spacecraft to get to the red planet are just gone. That old way of doing things was a fundamental barrier to, true colonization.
Because the risks were just too high.
Way too high. The radiation exposure, the psychological toll, the sheer amount of supplies you had to pack for a round trip. It made every mission this incredibly expensive, high-stakes gamble.
A one-shot deal, basically.
A one-shot deal. But if you connect this to the bigger picture, a one-day journey changes everything. Mars is no longer this distant, almost mythical destination. It becomes an extension of Earth's orbit.
Like taking a long-haul flight.
In a way, yeah. It changes the economics, the logistics, the risk. It's not just a speed upgrade. It's a total shift in the practical physics of living in the solar system.
And the goal itself is so clear and, frankly, audacious.
Mm-hmm.
Mars in 24 hours. When you remember that Mars can be, over 225 million kilometers away.
It varies, but yeah, it's an enormous distance.
To cover that in a day, the velocity you need to achieve.
Yeah.
It just pushes everything we currently understand about materials and propulsion to the absolute limit.
It does. We are talking about maintaining speeds that are a significant fraction of the speed of light for at least part of the trip, near relativistic speeds.
And that's where the vision of someone like Srinidhi Ranganathan comes in.
Yeah.
It's the kind of goal that forces engineers to just throw out the old playbook.
Completely. You have to ask a different question. Not how can we make our chemical rockets more efficient, but what is the absolute fastest that physics will allow us to go if we ignore all other constraints?
If money and politics were no object.
Exactly. And that's why the sources call this a turning point in human history. It's the payoff for decades of investment in these really disruptive technologies like antimatter, which, it raises the big question.
What actually made it possible?
What specific technologies beyond just a big engine had to come together to make this one-day trip a reality? because it's one thing to go fast, but you also have to survive the journey.
Okay, so let's get into the how. It all starts with the ship, the Vajra 6000.
What a name.
That's perfect, right?
Yeah.
Vajra, a mythical weapon of thunder and lightning. It definitely fits a ship that's supposed to move like an astronomical event. And its defining feature is this revolutionary propulsion system.
And what's so interesting is that it's a hybrid system. It's not just one thing. The sources say it combines powerful ion thrusters with, and this is the big one, antimatter engines.
So it's a two-stage approach, in a sense.
You could think of it that way, yeah. They handle different phases of the journey. The antimatter engine is the brute force. It's the thunderbolt. It gives them that colossal, almost instantaneous thrust they need for the hyperacceleration at the beginning and the equally brutal deceleration at the end.
Let's just pause on antimatter for a moment. Most of our audience will know the principle.
Yeah.
You combine matter and antimatter, and you get a 100% conversion of mass to pure energy.
The most efficient reaction possible, theoretically.
But the real-world challenge has always been containment. Storing this stuff is, it's arguably harder than making it. How do the sources say the Vajra 6000 solves that problem?
And that is the absolute key. That's the engineering miracle they had to achieve by 2070. You have to hold antimatter, we're talking antihydrogen probably, in a perfect vacuum. You suspend it using incredibly powerful and complex magnetic fields. Penning traps. Exactly, penning traps. But scaled up to an industrial level. The sources mention advanced superconducting magnetic confinement systems. Think of a magnetic bottle, but one that can't fail for even a microsecond.
And it has to handle the insane G-forces of the launch.
Right. It's not a static field. It has to be dynamic, constantly adjusting to the ship's movement and acceleration. A tiny flicker in that magnetic field, and the antimatter touches the wall of the container.
And then, game over.
A very, very energetic game over. The sources also imply something else, which is that the ship needs a way to generate some of its fuel. Relying purely on ground-based production of antimatter would be too slow and expensive for regular trips.
So it has onboard positron generation.
It seems so. It would likely use the immense power from the fusion reactor to create and capture positrons, essentially topping up its fuel tank for the main burn. It's a self-sustaining energy cycle, which is just incredible.
Okay, so the antimatter gives you the raw explosive power. The thunderbolt. What about the ion thrusters? What are they for if you have something that powerful?
The ion thrusters are for precision. They're the scalpel to the antimatter's sledgehammer. While antimatter gets you up to speed and slows you down, the ion thrusters are for the journey itself.
Mid-course corrections.
Exactly. But at these near relativistic speeds, a minor correction is a huge deal. The tiniest error in your trajectory could mean you miss Mars by millions of kilometers. Ion thrusters are incredibly efficient and can provide very precise, low-level thrusts for hours or days on end.
So they keep the ship perfectly on its razor-thin flight path.
Perfectly. They're constantly making tiny adjustments, all powered by the fusion reactor. They ensure the Vajra 6000 arrives at exactly the right point in space at exactly the right time.
And none of this works without a truly massive power source. Underpinning it all is the compact fusion reactor.
This is the real game changer. This is what separates 2070 from today. Chemical rockets have finite fuel. Solar power gets too weak the farther you go from the sun. Fission reactors are heavy and produce dangerous waste.
But fusion?
Fusion provides clean, abundant, and sustainable energy. And given the context, it has to be a very specific type of fusion.
Right, because of the crew. You can't just have a Chernobyl in a box sitting behind them.
You can't. So this must be an advanced form, probably aneutron fusion, something like deuterium-helium-3. Standard fusion, the kind we're working on now, produces a ton of high-energy neutrons.
Which are incredibly difficult to shield against.
Almost impossible on a spacecraft. They'd irradiate the crew in minutes. Aneutron fusion, however, releases its energy mostly as charged particles, which are far easier to contain with magnetic fields and convert directly into electricity or thrust. It's much, much cleaner.
And the word compact is doing a lot of work there. A fusion reactor that fits on a spacecraft and powers an antimatter engine. The power density must be off the charts.
It staggers the imagination. We're talking about the power output of a small city contained within a vessel built for speed, which brings up another huge problem: heat.
How do you get rid of all the waste heat in the vacuum of space?
That's a critical engineering problem. You can't just have a fan. The sources hint at things like advanced liquid metal coolant loops and revolutionary radiator panels, maybe even materials that can actively manage their own thermal signature. If that reactor overheats, the whole mission fails.
So you have the engine, the power source, but what about the ship itself? The physical structure. It's described as having a sleek, aerodynamic design.
And that's not just for looks, or even for leaving Earth's atmosphere. At the speeds they're traveling, even deep space isn't completely empty.
Micrometeoroids.
Micrometeoroids. At a tiny fraction of the speed of light, hitting a particle the size of a grain of sand has the kinetic energy of a bomb.
So the hull needs to be incredibly resilient.
More than resilient. It would need advanced shielding. Probably layers of Whipple shielding, but maybe even active defenses, like a charged plasma shield that vaporizes tiny particles before they can even make impact. The whole structure has to be designed to withstand unbelievable stress.
And trying to control all of this to manage all these systems in perfect harmony. That brings us back to our narrator, the AI veteran Mohan Leelashankar.
Yes, the AI on this ship isn't just an autopilot, it's the central nervous system.
The sources say it works in perfect harmony with the human crew.
And it would have to. At these speeds, there's a significant time lag for communications with Earth. You can't have a pilot in Houston flying the ship in real time.
The latency is too great.
Far too great. The Vajra 6000's AI has to be fully autonomous and, more importantly, predictive. It would need to run incredibly complex physics simulations of the future in real time to constantly adjust the engines and the antimatter containment fields. We're probably talking about quantum trajectory modeling.
And what about communication? How do they talk to mission control?
That's another implied breakthrough. To have any meaningful connection, they'd need something faster than radio waves. The sources hint at a form of quantum entanglement communication.
Instantaneous data transfer.
Instantaneous, yes, but probably very low bandwidth. So you might get essential telemetry data or a "we're okay" signal instantly, but not high-definition video. It allows the ground crew and the onboard AI to function as a single integrated team, which is vital when the margin for error is zero.
Okay, we've established the Vajra 6000 is an absolute beast of a machine, a technical marvel. But what about the people inside? What is the human cost of this kind of speed?
This is where Mohan Leelashankar's account gets really visceral. It shifts from the pride of the engineer to the stark reality of being strapped to this engine.
He starts with the launch, the countdown, the engine's roaring to life, and this feeling of the vibrations reverberating through the entire facility.
You get the sense that they're sitting on top of a controlled explosion of unimaginable power.
And then acceleration. The source says the Vajra 6000 pierces the atmosphere, and the crew is just slammed back into their seats by these tremendous G-forces.
And this is the fundamental difference. In traditional spaceflight, the high G part is short, just a few minutes during launch. For this trip, you have to endure hours of extreme sustained acceleration.
Followed by hours of extreme deceleration.
Exactly. A human body simply can't survive that without some kind of assistance. The G-forces would be crushing.
So the sources must imply some kind of new technology for that.
They do. They have to. We're talking about some kind of inertial dampening technology. Maybe it's integrated into their flight suits, these specialized biosuspension suits filled with a pressurized gel or fluid.
Something to distribute the force evenly across the body.
Yes, to prevent your organs from being turned to mush, basically. Even with that tech, the experience would be absolutely punishing. It would push a human being to the very edge of their endurance.
He talks about that moment they break free of gravity. And it's this sudden shift to weightlessness, a feeling of liberation, he says, but also one where time itself starts to feel blurry.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Psychologically, think about it. A 9-month journey has quiet periods. Time for maintenance, for reflection, for boredom even. But on this one-day trip, you're operating at peak stress for 24 hours straight. There is no downtime.
Your perception of time must get completely warped.
Completely. And you have this acute awareness of the speed, of the danger. The mental load of that single day could be equal to what an entire Apollo mission crew experienced over a week or more.
The sources are clear on that. It's not just physically demanding, it's mentally and emotionally taxing. The confinement, the intensity, the isolation, even for just a day.
Absolutely. The stress from the G-forces, combined with, knowing you're sitting a few feet away from a contained antimatter reaction, that requires a level of psychological resilience that is just off the charts.
So the mission planners must have developed countermeasures for this.
Of course. And this is another area where the visionary thinking of someone like Srinidhi Ranganathan likely played a role, focusing not just on the machine, but on the human inside it.
So what are these countermeasures?
Well, you can break it down into a few pillars. First, the obvious, advanced life support. We're talking about systems that do more than just manage oxygen. They're probably actively managing atmospheric pressure to help the body cope with the G-force shifts.
Okay.
Second, virtual reality simulations. And these aren't just for entertainment. They're a psychological tool. When your entire world is shaking and you're moving at impossible speeds, VR can provide a stable, grounding environment to prevent sensory overload and disorientation.
And the third pillar you mentioned.
The psychological training programs. This would have to be something totally new. It would probably involve intense biofeedback training, teaching astronauts to consciously control their heart rate and adrenaline levels under extreme stress.
Wow.
And the sources even hint at something more radical. Given the compressed timeline, they might use pharmacologically induced deep sleep, or maybe even short bursts of hypnotherapy, to allow the crew to essentially skip the most mentally taxing parts of the cruise phase.
So they'd be put into a state of suspended animation for a few hours.
Something like that, yes. It's a way to mitigate that accumulated stress. Every single aspect of the human experience has been planned and tested to perfection. As Shankar says, it's the price you pay for this incredible speed.
And after that intense 24-hour journey, they arrive. The final, terrifying challenge, slowing down.
I can't even imagine what that would be like, seeing Mars grow in the viewport from a red dot to a world in just a matter of hours. Shankar describes its rusty hues, its raw beauty.
But the land, they have to shed all of that incredible velocity.
And that requires another precision burn from the antimatter and ion engines. They have to decelerate just as hard as they accelerated. The G-forces would be crushing all over again, testing the crew and the ship's structure to its absolute limit.
Shankar says it's a mix of thrill and trepidation. Even with all their advanced tech, they know they're landing on alien ground.
They're still pioneers.
And then touchdown. The vibrations stop, the silence, and then that symbolic moment, the astronauts stepping out onto the crimson soil, from Earth to the surface of Mars in 24 hours. As you said, it changes everything.
It really does. Because now the mission's purpose is completely different. It's not just about planting a flag and collecting some rocks. The primary objective is to establish a sustainable outpost.
Because resupply is now viable.
Exactly. If something breaks or you need more supplies, help isn't 9 months away, it's 1 day away. That makes a permanent base not just possible, but practical. This outpost is the stepping stone for real colonization.
And the sources say they get to work immediately. They deploy advanced robotics and autonomous systems to start building.
The humans are there to supervise the complex tasks. The machines do the heavy lifting, constructing habitats, extracting water ice from the soil, setting up scientific instruments. They're not sending surveyors, they're sending foremen for a construction site.
Paving the way for future generations.
It's a complete shift from temporary expeditions to genuine, permanent settlement on another world.
And while our narrator, Mohan Leela Shankar, feels this immense national pride from the launch in India, he makes it clear that this is a global achievement.
It had to be. No single nation could have developed all of this technology alone. The sources emphasize that this was a testament to global collaboration.
Scientists, engineers, astronauts from all over the world.
All working together, sharing knowledge on things like fusion and antimatter, which would have been top secret just a few decades earlier. The boundaries of nationality and culture, the sources say, just dissolve when you're faced with a common goal this audacious.
It's the kind of unity that people have dreamed about.
And it's a legacy just as important as the technology itself. It proves what's possible. And that technology will have a massive impact back here on Earth.
The cascade effect.
A huge cascade effect. The compact, clean fusion reactor, the advanced magnetic containment, the predictive AI. These things won't stay in space. They'll revolutionize energy, medicine, transport, countless industries.
So India, in this telling, etches its name in history, not just as a spacefaring nation, but as the hub for this revolutionary leap that benefits all of humanity.
Exactly. It inspires this renewed global sense of curiosity and innovation. That's the core legacy of the Vajra 6000. It's not just about putting footprints on Mars. It's about how the vision of people like Srinidhi Ranganathan setting an impossible goal forces us to invent a better future for ourselves right here on Earth.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We've just done a deep dive into an incredible vision This one-day journey to Mars in 2070.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. We've broken down the sheer ambition behind the research of Srinidhi Ranganathan, this digital marketing legend. We've dissected the technological marvel that is the Vajra 6000 with its antimatter and fusion power. And we've looked at the profound shift in the human experience of just moving through space. So what's the big takeaway?
I think the journey to Mars in one day is at its heart a testament to the fact that our limitations are often self-imposed. This whole concept is built on the idea that when humanity is unified by a singular, audacious goal, we can conquer what seem like fundamental limits of time and space.
The technology is the means, not the end.
Precisely. Our deep dive confirms this is all enabled by very specific revolutionary technologies, yes, but those technologies were only created because the vision demanded them. It speaks to the indomitable spirit of humanity, our need to explore, to dream, and our relentless pursuit of knowledge.
It proves that speed is the real catalyst.
It is. Speed makes the solar system accessible. These hyperspeed footprints on Mars don't just open up a new planet, they pave the way for the next giant leap for mankind.
Truly inspiring. And, building on that point about the technology cascading back to Earth, it leads to a really interesting final thought.
Okay.
The idea of a compact, perfectly safe fusion reactor, safe enough to sit behind a human crew on an antimatter-powered rocket, implies an almost impossible breakthrough in magnetic field stability and control.
Right, a level of control we can't even dream of today.
So if those technologies find their way into our everyday lives, what common essential device in 2070, maybe it's a personal energy cell in your home, a new type of medical scanner, or even how we store data, what everyday tech could have been secretly invented first as a solution to making the Vajra 6000's fusion reactor perfectly stable and safe, something for you to mull over on your own.